We have with us Mr. Satinder Singh, the CEO of LNG business of Adani Total Energies. He will talk to us about the commissioning of the project, the total cargoes that it's handling and what's the current status. Welcome to NDTV Profit, Mr. Satinder ji.
Thank you, Vikas ji. Thank you so much.
So, since we last met, we have seen that now things have progressed quite far after the commissioning. So what is the current status on the project? How much capacity you all are handling? And what is the plans going ahead?
So, Vikas, we made a very strong start to our business in Dhamra, not least because of the enormous amount of effort and experience that people put into this project. Since the time we last met, we have stabilized our operations. We've imported 15 commercial cargoes till date. I think 10 from GAIL, 5 from IOCL. We are at about 52% capacity utilization in the first year, which, if my numbers are correct, makes us the second most utilized terminal in India this year.
So, given you have already got 15 cargoes, what are your plans and what the kind of demand you foresee for your terminal?
So, Vikas, it is quite instructive to note that Dhamra is the closest LNG terminal for 35% of India's population. We are the only terminal in Eastern India, and with the unification of gas tariff in the pipeline by PNGRB last year, we are really very well placed to definitely service the eastern market, but also the northern and soon the southern markets which will be connected. This, coupled with the fact that there has been a considerable softening in global LNG prices in the last few months, and of course the Honorable Prime Minister's vision, which he reiterated today, of increasing the share of natural gas in our primary energy mix to 15% very soon. All of these three factors actually are very good factors for us when we are looking to grow our business. I see a very robust role for gas, in particular LNG, in the coming months, and that is going to be a step towards decarbonizing our entire industrial sector, and also will be in the long term more economical because LNG is definitely going to be cheaper than some of the liquid fuels it will replace.
Who are our main customers, main buyers of the cargo that we are getting? Is it only getting consumed on the eastern front of the country, or you are also looking at northern and southern India?
Yeah, thanks, Vikas. As you know, our capacity has been subscribed to by Indian Oil and GAIL. As I understand, Indian Oil is taking this LNG for use in its refineries primarily. GAIL, of course, is also taking it to service its demand in the fertilizer sector and also other customers. Most of the gas at present is being consumed in the eastern part of India, but there have been instances where the gas has actually also flowed to the north. There are no technical constraints to more gas being flowing to the north. And as the throughput increases, we fully expect LNG from Dhamra to find its way not just to the northern parts, but also the southern parts, of course, in addition to the eastern sector.
So apart from, say, Indian Oil and GAIL that you spoke about, which could be the other customers and other sectors where the demand could come up?
Well, there are a number of industrial industries in the eastern part with a lot of demand from mining, steel industry, and of course the CGD segment, which is, India has a stated target of achieving 100% penetration in the CGD market. And all of these will be customers that will be eventually serviced from Dhamra LNG. Some of them are already being serviced today, but this will continue to grow.
And we know about Dhamra LNG terminal. Are there other terminals also that Adani Total Energies is looking at?
Well, let's talk about Dhamra LNG for a bit. Having made the investment in Dhamra LNG, and given that there's a bit of pre-investment already done for expansion to 10 MTPA, we've got land for the third tank, we've got space and some pre-investment for additional vaporizers and power system, we will definitely be the lowest cost expansion capacity or additional capacity that will become available on the eastern coast. So any demand in the eastern part of India, Dhamra is going to be very well placed to meet that demand via an expansion of its current phase. That's point number one. In addition to that, of course, there are a number of other opportunities that we are actively pursuing at the moment, not just in the eastern sector, but also in the western sector. As you can appreciate, the discussions are somewhat confidential, but we have a growing appetite to develop more LNG infrastructure in the country and get involved in the sector more closely. And you will definitely see us doing that in the months and years ahead.
Given LNG is looked as a transition fuel, before other alternative fuel catches up, how do you see demand panning up, or do you see it's going down in coming years?
You see, we are referred to as a transition fuel, but I think I do have a little bit of a problem with that statement, because if a transition is going to be 25 years long, is it still called a transition? I like to believe that LNG, the path towards climate neutrality, the path towards net zero, necessarily goes through LNG, necessarily goes through gas. We are going to achieve climate neutrality by 2070. So it's a long gap between now and 2070. And in that gap, LNG will play an increasing role because of two factors. Number one, the overall share of gas in the primary energy mix is going to go up from 6 to 15%, and the share of domestic gas is not increasing. So because of both of these factors, India will remain, unfortunately, reliant on importing LNG for many years to come. But I think overall, given that we will substitute more expensive and more polluting fuels that we are importing today, we should be feeling good about that, and we should embrace LNG by making longer term commitments towards buying LNG and also developing infrastructure.
One last question on, since you are planning to expand also in the second phase, what is the total investments that you all have planned for the project? How much has been spent and how much more needs to be spent?
So phase 1, Vikas, is complete. Order of magnitude, we spent about $800 million on phase 1. That project is up and running, as you've seen yourself a few months ago. And we will expand when we will expand, and the cost will become known at that point in time. But roughly speaking, that's the kind of capital outlay for a 5 million ton terminal in today's terms.
And as of now, you are operating at 50% of your utilization. By when you see almost 80 to 100% happening?
Yeah, I'll answer that question in two parts. The straight answer is maybe in about 3 to 4 years from today, we could be hitting 100% or close to 100%. But in my mind, I do want to use your platform to make one clarification, that we are too fixated on capacity utilization. Having a slightly underutilized asset like an LNG terminal is actually a very good thing, because it means you've got flexibility for sourcing. The value of being able to source a cargo opportunistically by not being fully utilized is actually worth much more than the cost of paying a little bit of money for unutilized capacity. Because if you don't have flexibility, you have no option but to buy the cargo when you need it, because you are so tightly packed in the terminal. But if you have flexibility via some spare capacity, you can opportunistically source cargoes. And the arbitrage opportunities in the last few years, thanks to what happened in Ukraine, show that arbitrage is worth a lot of money. So my humble appeal to everybody who's working on LNG is to not just look at capacity utilization of a terminal. They should be finding metrics to understand how effectively that capacity has been used. And if that means we are only utilizing 60% of our capacity, that's not a bad thing in my opinion.
But then what would be the most optimum level for utilization?
Well, it depends on how volatile the market is. If the market is very volatile, I would say it makes a lot of sense to retain flexibility. And in the last 2 years at least, there's been a lot of volatility in the market. So I think if you look internationally, for example, in Japan, the average utilization rates of terminals there are about 30%. So, I'm not going to come up here with a magical answer, but in my mind, if a terminal is doing anything north of 50%, that's a pretty healthy utilization already.
Thank you very much for talking to NDTV Profit, sir. It was up.
Thank you so much, Vikas. Really appreciate your time.